I believe in death of the physical suit, you know,
Yeah.
um, flowers, leaves, trees, everything dies, right? The physical part of it, but there's energy in everything, right? That's scientifically backed, and energy never dies; it just transforms. So, there's just been too much of things that I've experienced as a medium to know that to believe that this is the end.
Nicole, Linde, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being willing to come on. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course. Love what you're
Okay.
starting to do with your podcast and messages, healing messages, and expanding consciousness. And I think there's definitely a need for that right now.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my first question is, what is a intuitive psychic medium?
Okay, so a medium, an intuitive or psychic medium, is someone who can connect with people who are in spirit, so people who have passed away, and they can also read energy in the physical world. So any questions or concerns people have within their own life.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say that sometimes people don't know the difference, which I totally understand. And that's why it's important to really clarify, I have on my website and stuff like that. But there's all types of healers, like we were talking about before, different types of readers. There's people who specialize in just pet psychics. Some just, specialize more in with humans. And some people are in Akashic records. There's Reiki, right? There's so many. Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel like your specialty is?
Well, I feel like both mediumship and psychic intuitive, but I definitely started that I was aware of more in the mediumship realm. And I was actually a little bit resistant to doing psychic intuitive work at first. But then I realized that, some of my teachers and other people told me that it only helps your mediumship abilities. I think it's hard to explain, but mediumship is so healing sometimes that it was almost like I get a bit of that healing as well. And I didn't want to kind of drop into the physical realm. But then I realized once I started doing more psychic intuitive readings that those can be also very rewarding and expanding as well, right? Because we have to be here in the physical realm. So whether or not you're getting a message from, mom or sister in spirit, it's also you got to exist here while you're here. So it can be very powerful as well.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier, I went to this conference in Cincinnati. I forgot the name of it, but all the psychic mediums that I wanted to get a reading from, they were pretty packed. So I'm walking and I see a lady with no one even in front of her. And she was with her husband, and I asked her for a reading. And next thing you know, I had a profound experience in front of hundreds of people. I had tears flowing down my eyes, and I couldn't hold them back. I felt a healing, transformation happening. And I wanted to speak to my father, and because I was with him when he fell off the cliff when I was younger, and I held his body and had an outer body experience, and I felt like I was tapped into him leaving his body. But at the same time, my brother-in-law wanted to come in and talk and give me a message to give to his daughter, and he was shot in the head when we were younger because we grew up in an environment with gangs. And he ran with the Crips. And as I was telling you earlier, we don't join a gang to be bad people. We join a gang because we want to feel loved and we want to be a part of and feel connected, which is what all humans want. And unfortunately, we looked at it for that in the wrong places at times. But his favorite color was blue. He loved the Dallas Cowboys. He had a Cadillac that was all blue. And he told the medium to tell me to tell his daughter to watch out for blue jays. And I thought it was weird, blue jays, and it being, she lives in Torrance where there's not a lot of nature,
Yeah.
unless you go to the ocean area in
Okay.
California. But blue jays started to pop up 3 weeks later, and she sends me different pictures of blue jays. So I thought it was
So
pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so amazing that, not only, some of the information that comes through during the reading, but like the information that can come through that comes after, right? So not
Mm.
everything is during the session. I always tell people, like, if you don't understand something, like put a pin in it, or maybe it hasn't happened yet, or you got to check with someone else. Cause like you said, like your uncle, what sounded like, you obviously like you knew him, but like sometimes there'll be people who's like, oh wait, that is my mom's sister that I, didn't know, or my great aunt or whatever. I have neighbors, you can't really control who pops in. And like you said, like sometimes they want to give a message to someone else through you. So I find that really amazing. Spirit world, their main thing is just helping us, right? Whichever way they can. So I've definitely had spirit. I always tell people it's kind of like, say someone's neighbor came through and they're just chatty and they want to give a message to, like, their mom or something. I'm like, I'm sorry that so-and-so is spirit bombing your reading, but it's for a reason, right? And it's usually only for like, 5 or 10 minutes. And oftentimes they do have advice for the person who's getting the reading as well, so.
That's funny, spirit bombing, huh?
Yeah. Because I think sometimes we have a lot of expectations. Just, I do it too myself, whether it be a psychic intuitive reading or whether it be a mediumship reading. We really expect, and we really want to have, like, say, that one person come through, right? And, or, in a psychic reading, you really kind of sometimes you have a little bit of an agenda, right? Even if you're not fully aware of that. And, you know, part of the reason why we get readings, I believe, is to expand, right? And to see what kind of vision our guides have for us, or people in spirit. And some of the profound messages can come from, your great aunt, or, your grandpa that you never met, or can come from, a psychic experience where they're showing something that you hadn't thought of, right? So I think that's, if people stay open, that they can really find some healing in unexpected places, and find some insights, you know? So.
Yeah, thank you. We were talking earlier about you were telling me an experience with your father on the rocking chair. I believe you asked me a question,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, in his green chair. Yeah. Because you had said about when your dad was passing and you were on the cliff, and I asked you if you had felt, if you had kind of felt like he was blending. In mediumship world, we call it blending, when the spirit or another person's energy basically blends with yours.
mm,
So did you feel that with your dad? Like, when you were having your out of body experience, did you feel like you were in more than one place, kind of like not just you, like your energy was blending with your dad's?
yeah, I felt like I was out of me, if that makes sense. And I felt
Yes.
like I remember looking at the whole picture for a few seconds outside of my body, and I seen the helicopter, the news, I seen the
Yeah.
firemen, the police, the people looking
Wow.
over the cliffs, and I seen my uncle and me, his younger brother, with my
Yeah.
father. And then the firemen and police coming down to where we were at.
So yeah. And I kind of feel like your dad or spirit gave you that experience so that you would know that life doesn't end just there.
Mm,
Like, dad's energy is going somewhere else, you know? And
yeah.
it reminded me of, like, when we had talked before, it's just that, I had wondered about that, because when my dad was passing, I was kind of awake in the middle of the night, and sort of in and out of sleep. And I suddenly felt like I was in my dad's favorite green chair that he used to sit in. It was like his own chair,
Mm.
drink beer in his chair. That, and he didn't even live there anymore. This was like childhood. And I was seeing things like I was in his body sitting there, and I was kind of seeing things flash before my eyes that weren't my memories.
Mm.
So he was definitely, I was out of my body blending with him. And I believe he must have been having some of those experiences possibly when he was kind of in and out of consciousness in the hospital.
So I have to ask you this question. Do you believe in death?
In death, I believe in death of the physical suit, you know,
Yeah.
um, flowers, leaves, trees, everything dies, right? The physical part of it, but there's energy in everything, right? That's scientifically backed, and energy never dies; it just transforms. So, there's just been too much of things that I've experienced as a medium to know that to believe that this is the end. There's just
Mm.
too many mind-blowing things that have happened, that even when I've been second guessing myself, or like, maybe that's just psychic, or maybe that's just, you know, um, because we want to understand, we want to control we want to know, right? So, and we are our own worst critic sometimes too, which I think it's good to be critical, even when you are a medium to a degree, to always be a little bit like a little teeny bit skeptical, because it does, being skeptical just in a little bit helps you discern information as well, and what is and what wasn't, from spirit. So spirit always blows my mind somehow. So I can't believe this is it. What were we before we came here? Were we nothing? So,
Thank you.
you know yeah, what I think mediumship and any type of like psi experience or spiritual awakening does for a person is to see kind of little teeny um, hole into something larger, right,
Mm.
than us. And that, some of the most profound experiences I've had is that we are all connected somehow.
It's been my experience as well. I had a few other outer body experiences, and my last one was in Ohio, and I realized that death is an illusion created by the conditioned mind, and I actually
Yeah,
went beyond the mind into the pure state of consciousness or presence. It's weird. It's kind of like when you try to explain it, it kind of just ruins the whole
I know.
experience or dilutes it. Yeah.
It's like, I get you though. I've had some of those too. Yeah. And it's, the thing about it is I feel like if everyone knew how good spirit world is, like nobody would want to stay here. you know so, but that's not our lesson, right? That's not our lesson to just vacate, and go like, this is not mine. Even through thick and thin and all of the difficulties of physical realm, it's like, how can we bring just a little bit of that light that we experience, or that those insights, those downloads, like that you got from, with your father, or when you had your out of body experiences, to help ourselves. Like you said, I mean, it's not about being perfect, or I'm always happy, or I'm always doing like, the most expansive thing. I mean, sometimes I'm a grump, sometimes, but sometimes I get sad. I'm still just here. But I do feel like it has helped me so much compared to when I didn't understand what was going on, or when I
Mm.
was, had a lot of depression when I was younger, and was in the hospital, actually for being suicidal when I was a teenager. I was also into a lot of drugs when I was a teen. And, I didn't know what to do with all those energies. And some of what I feel like psychic and mediumship development can help people with. And not only that, there's other different spiritual modalities and developments, is to help understand the energies that are within us and that are coming to us, and help separate them, as well as see that bigger picture and have those beautiful insights.
Yeah, I like how you brought up sensitivity. It seemed like you're more sensitive um, as a young
Yeah.
child. I want to ask you about your early life, but I think when we get caught up in drugs and alcohol, we're very sensitive. We can bring in that sensitivity from
Mm-hmm.
being born into this world. Science has taught us that it's not so much a brain disease when you're stuck in addiction, but but we can bring in sensitivity. We can become extra sensitive. It makes us more prone to becoming an alcoholic or an addict. But I feel like since this awakening happened in 2009, and I've had multiple awakenings, but um,
Yeah.
it's not a one-time event, at least for me. But I feel more sensitive, but I've learned how to utilize that in a more positive way and deal with it in a positive way with spiritual principles that I use today. But I could feel the suffering in others, and I could also feel the joy and happiness in others. And it sometimes I
Yeah.
think it could be a gift and a curse for me, because
It
I could feel
is.
it strong.
And I wonder, like, now, like, do you feel like you have more tools to kind of like work with, versus like, that's the way that I feel, versus before, it was kind of like, and then of course, like your environment growing up, whether or not you have other addicts or role models, that's the only way that they know how to, function. So some of it's like modeled behavior, right? And then the other part
Mm,
of it is, kind of like hereditary things. But, and also just not having any tools, like no one ever told me about psychic or mediumship stuff, or being sensitive, or, I was always picked on for being too sensitive. It was like a negative thing.
mm,
I used to faint a lot. I fell off the bleachers once. It was kind of my way of vacating when things were like too loaded for sensitivity. Um, and I think that, we learn different ways to try to medicate and try
mm,
to um, desensitize, when really it's sort of like, what are some of the tools that we can do for self-care so that we can use our sensitivities, um, to help ourselves
mm,
and others, so what would do you feel like there was and with that, like really looking at self-sabotaging like behaviors and stuff, I had to stop, doing all certain things, as painful as that whole kind of spiritual awakening can be, because I think people sort of feel like, oh, spiritual awakening, it's mind blowing, and it's just like and it's like, yeah, you can have those mind blowing of things. You do have those mind blowing um, experiences, but it's also like the daily life stuff, when you realize I can't function in this environment or
mm.
these kind of behaviors. To me, that's even more profound than the one or two time things where you have big, huge insights, because you also have to integrate and function. You know what I mean?
I had a major painful experience, and I think I was fighting my own inner demons, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Because my friend Carlo, who he passed away a while back. My good childhood friend. He actually, I talked to him when he was in prison, and I was getting sober, changing my life. And he said he was with me that night, and he said I didn't even want to open the door because it sounded like you were fighting demons. It was like he described it as The Exorcist, and I don't remember that at all. But
Yeah.
Carl Jung said something profound, and he says there's no coming to consciousness without pain. Now I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true for everybody, but that's true for me.
I
I was in
really
a lot of
believe it
pain.
too. Yeah. Yeah. Because I slowly had kind of stopped certain, behaviors. And then when I really said no to, a lot of things, and I started meditating, um, someone I said it's really painful. I would sit and meditate, and all this stuff would come up, all this stuff. And I forgot who it even was that I was talking to, but she had said, let it all come up. Let the fire, it's a fire. It's stuff that you've been pushing down, stuff that you've been medicating, stuff that you've been not able to deal with. So it's all going to come up, and it's like a fire, and just trust that it will kind of, the flame will kind of put itself out. You just got to sit with it and be uncomfortable. That was my biggest thing when I was going through the biggest hump of kind of, stop drinking or stop doing something. It was very much like, are you okay with not being comfortable? Because a lot of times I wanted to, have some beer at, 3 p.m. or whatever it was, or, because I was uncomfortable. And it's like, now what do you do with that? You just sit with it, So that was kind of those things where that's why self-development, I feel like, is really important in a way. Spiritual development, it's all sort of intertwined, right?
You're right. Going back to your early life, did you always know you had these abilities, or how did your childhood look like, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So my childhood, there's a lot in there. I would say that I definitely was more sensitive, and I was very observant, and there was some difficulties growing up just within our family structure, and things that happened that I think is kind of a combo of, and I feel like my first ways of dealing with energy was through my artwork. So I really tried to express and kind of channel through my artwork. And then as I got older into teenage years, that's when I started having more kind of profound experiences, where I would feel like I could hear what other people were thinking. And that also kind of landed me in the psych ward. So, because, I was also medicating a lot with it. So it all kind of got messed up together. And I do have, when I was in the hospital, they weren't quite sure, is she schizophrenic or is she, what is she? They want to, put something on you, especially when you say you are seeing things, or and I also do have schizophrenic people in my family, so it is hereditary, so they were sort of like, what's going on with her, but then they realized, nope, she's not. There's just not a lot of help from the Western psychology world, I feel like. Now it's starting to get, I think, maybe more integrated, but back then it was like, take this medicine, take this antidepressant, rather than like, hey, let's go into all this, what are you experiencing? So it was kind of a gradual process. And then in college, I was having more of, like you talk about, I was having kind of like out of body experiences. I didn't really know how to ground very well. And then I had a lot of experiences kind of like out of, in my late 20s was when I started to really understand, like, oh, okay, there's something like going on here. Like, other people were drawing attention, some of my abilities and things like that. But I fought it for a long time. I was like scared of it. I don't know. I wasn't self-developed. You know what I mean? Not that you're ever fully, but I was pushing everything away. So, I think there's a lot of fear with it. Now it's becoming, I think, a lot more people are understanding what mediumship is, how it's healing, but there's still a lot of kind of Hollywood stuff, spooky vision, spooky people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling on, but I would say it was a gradual awakening to understanding.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I heard you on a talk about a imaginary or invisible friend
Yeah.
you had.
Yes, I did. Gertrude. I had her. And you know what? Someone sent me, it was after one of the podcasts I did where I was talking about it. Someone sent me, and she sent me it afterwards. She's like, oh, I heard you were talking about your childhood friend Gertrude. There's a Saint Gertrude. And she's like, Gertrude of the Cats or something. Or she's like, not Gertrude, she's like Saint of the Cats or something. I'm like, oh, that sounds like me. I love cats. I don't know. It's sort of like, I think that some, I had an imaginary friend, and I know several other mediums, but I don't want to pigeonhole either, because there's also people who didn't, and there's some people who knew they were talking to spirit since they were 2, and then there's some people when they're, 65. So it's kind of like whenever your soul is ready, whenever it's kind of like a seed. Sometimes we, and some of that is, I don't want to downplay too the work, and also then the intention of working on it, because all mediums work on their abilities. Even mediums who have seen, say, like an aunt after they passed when they were 6. It doesn't mean you can just go out and read for everybody. You have to work on it. It's a skill like anything else. It's lifelong.
So how'd you get into mediumship?
So when I was, so I knew, like, when I was late 20s, that I was pretty intuitive psychic, and that I had a chance to develop with a guy who had done a tarot reading for me, and I guessed his birthday. Well, I didn't guess, I just came through, and because it's reminding me of my grandma and other things like that. And he's like, oh, okay, well, and I had a ghost in my apartment. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've talked about in other podcasts, who were trying to wake me up, right? They're trying to wake me up. And the spirit in my apartment was very healing, and very like trying to be like, hey, you can do this. But it took me another like 5 years after that. Through my paintings, I started to wake up, and I would see someone's face that I didn't know, and then I would paint it. But I didn't know how to get any of the other information. I didn't know, and then I kept feeling like nudged toward it. Do you know what I mean? When you kind of feel drawn towards something, but it just keeps coming at you. And then I had my grandma came to me in spirit, and she was really adamant about it. Like, hey, listen, you're going to do this. And then the next day I saw like a ad on Facebook for a mediumship platform group reading. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to go to this. And I went to that, and that same grandma came through to the medium. And it's kind of like maybe your event, but it was like it was kind of like and then he brought through some information. Then he said, hey, you do this for a living, don't you? And I was all like, I don't know. So, I still, and then I think that was one of the final kind of like pushes. It's one of those things where it's just a lot of things for me that was pointing me towards doing this. And and then finally I just listened. So then I started taking classes and stuff like that.
Tapping into to spirit and other worlds and dimensions, if that's the right wording to use. Do you believe in, like, do you believe or know there's UFOs and other beings or aliens or humanoids in other places?
I know. I feel like there is. And, it's hard because I don't see the world just through one religion. I feel like spirit world, or whatever spirit world, is about, encompasses all everyone. And it's not to say that because Jesus is one of my teachers, but I also have, like, other spiritual teachers, that it's something bigger that we can't completely know of. And sometimes I feel like the other ETs and other beings that are coming from other realms, they're a part of it all.
Mm.
And they're here to essentially help us, level up out of this war torn, world that we live in, that we're fighting on this lower vibrational vibe. Do you feel like there is?
Other beings or
Yeah.
humanoids, or oh, for sure. I believe it would be small-minded of me to believe
Mhm.
there's. And ever since I was a kid, I always felt like there was. And I don't know if like if I watched Star Wars one time and I realized like I felt like I've been there before, like an intuitive knowing without
Yeah.
details. And the
Yeah.
same thing like with Indiana Jones or those old kung fu movies on the weekends on regular TV. I felt like I lived in those environments before. So
I
like
love.
I've always had this inner knowing of other lives, but I never
Yeah.
had much detail, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but I know.
But I know
Yeah.
it's like there's a intelligence that is living through us, through everything, and that I feel like it's almost like shedding layers or shedding skin. But you had asked me in the notes that questions you had sent me beforehand, like what do I think a soul is. And the best I can describe is just, I always like to use my crystal for that one.
Mm.
This crystal, because it feels like this is, if this is our soul, we have many facets of our soul that can be playing out in different lives, and yet our soul is the light that connects everything together, right? But it can express itself through different lives. And what, like you said, you don't remember much, but there's that knowing that you've been there before, or there's some kind of intelligence that you already know. And I believe we're not supposed to know a certain amount. I mean, otherwise, we would. What would there be to learn, or what would there be? You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
something going on that's leveling up, but it's happening through um, evolution.
Yeah, and the knowing is not like in my head. Like I have this knowing, and it's like around this area right here. Like I know
Yeah,
it's without the mind, if that makes sense. The
totally.
mind's it's with the mind, but without the mind, if
Yeah,
that makes kind of.
yeah. That's like a
Yeah.
claircognizant. The claircognizant is one of your psychic senses. It's like the inner, just instant knowing, for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like when we receive information like that, so that's your own, right? So that would be like part of your own, so that would be like a claircognizance for yourself. But if you were receiving it for someone else, that's like when I'm reading, I don't necessarily know what it means. Sometimes I'm just getting this. And sometimes I found myself that I will laugh when something is like extremely accurate, profound. It comes out as a laugh, like I'm laughing about it, and it's almost like, why was I laughing? It's not even. It's so fast, and when you really let go and allow that information through without your other side that wants to like analyze it and be like, is this, it's like it's just information from spirit that's just flowing. But we still are in our own brain, and that's like the whole lifelong journey, right? So, and you can do this within yourself as well, just even in the physical plane. What is coming from your soul, like your intuitive nudges, or it's oftentimes it's very subtle or quiet, versus what's happening in your programmed mind, or you know what I mean. You can kind of argue with yourself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of working on paying attention and acting on your intuition and those subtle like downloads, versus like kind of the programmed mind, or the external feedback. That's the
So
game, I feel like.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, what was your religious or spiritual beliefs before, and have they changed since, or in expanded?
So, when I was growing up, my dad was very like into sci-fi, and he used to read tons of books, and he was very I don't want to say atheist, but he wasn't into like religion. He was more into like spirituality in that way. And my mom was kind of like a recovering Catholic. So still going to church but not Catholic, and still kind of like, so I think I got a mixed view, of kind of an expansive view growing up. And then when I was, I'd say there was a time in my 20s where I just wasn't sure about anything. And you just kind of see all the ways that religion has really hurt people. And so I think I really didn't want to be exclusive or be kind of get into the trap of politics or religion and things like that. So, but once I started this whole journey, like really digging in, I feel like, like I said, I believe that there is God or universal, consciousness is about love. And love is what connects everyone. And that is the light that is in everything. And yeah, I just feel like it's a little bit of everything. But not one particular, not the one and only. I feel like we're sort of short-sighting ourselves by trying to contain it into just Christianity or just, Muslim or just, Buddhism or something like that. It feels too messed with. So I like to reach out to what is the purest form that doesn't have a whole lot of agenda within it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. They share the same principles in all religions, but the belief systems is that creates the division. I feel like after my awakening, the way I look at reality in many ways is like there's belief systems of boxes people get trapped in, right? And people are afraid to talk about the negative part or the shadow part of religion because it's important to understand it because it's killed, murdered, raped, tortured many people in the name of whatever religion. But I feel like I could see things outside of boxes. Like I don't belong in boxes, and I'm not talking about people's belief system. I'm just trying to describe how I see things. And when you're out of the boxes, you're more you could see things at a broader level, if that makes any sense. And you're not caught up in the us against them. And then it's like the universal consciousness. Everything is one,
Yes.
And we suffer because we forget that in this experience.
Yeah. And it's always so shocking just what's going on in the world right now. It's always so saddening to me. It just seems so unnecessary and so unevolved. I mean, I'm laughing just because it's so opposite of what spirit shows us, people who have committed, who have been just maybe not the best people. In spirit, they always want to share their love and they always want to share forgiveness. They're always coming through on a higher vibration. So something tells me that even if you were the most horrible, person in physical form, there is something that when we shed our ego, when we shed our pain body, and we're more pure consciousness, that we are in a state of oneness that shows us that is the truth.
There's a line in the Bhagavad Gita that kind of describes that. I don't know it offhand, but I know it's there.
Cool.
So I thought that was interesting.
Put it in the maybe on here somewhere. That would be.
Yeah, I'll do that. It's a good idea. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
have you ever tapped into like a spiritual teacher or master?
Yeah. I mean, so, Jesus is one of the people that, and actually, I mean, that sounds sort of like I'm not trying to sound whatever. It's just going to sound how it sounds to people. But
Yeah.
I wasn't seeking him. About 2 years ago, he actually popped into my meditation. If anything, I was sort of like not wanting to get into any, you know what I mean? But then he came and he was doing his kind of blessing signs and things like that. And I was talking to my mom, and she's like, he's giving you his blessing. He's there, So when I connect with him, of course, though I'm not trying to, I what I feel is that love. But do I judge people, or I don't go to church? You know what I mean? I don't I'm just getting the teachings and the love from him. And then I've also had, other types of beings, like you said, like I think they're the blue avians or something. I definitely have had experiences with them, and I feel like everyone's your teacher from spirit somehow.
Mm.
My grandma. I mean, you know, so there's been several different people, but like when I have a lot of clients who are in India, and some people who are in Singapore, but they are Indian, and it's like I've seen spiritual, like their leader, like different things that have come through that I didn't even know about, and I'm
Mm.
describing this like woman with this lion cat and everything, and you're like, oh, that's so and so, or different aspects of their spirituality in Hindu and things like that. And it's like it's the same. It's
Yeah, it is.
yeah, it's the same. They're here, So that's why I'm like, I can't. It's all in there. It's all in there.
Yeah, I feel like the Hindus, at least some of the Hindu masters and teachers or gurus, they understand
Yeah.
Jesus better than pastors over here in
Yeah.
America. And Krishna was considered blue, right? Do you see Krishna as blue? And he said the
Yeah.
I am before even Jesus used the
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, so it's it's universal truth, you know.
Universal truths.
Yeah,
And I love Ram Dass.
yeah.
And there's so many women healers and things that have been, like I was in Scotland for a while. I lived there for 3-4 months, and I get to visit like the torture like museum, what they would do to women, just for finding ailments. These are not
Mm.
people who are like putting the whole spell thing is funny, because actually what it is just like, if you go to the root of it, it's really just healing. It's just like, how can I use, different intentions, and then sometimes herbs and medicines, and how can we like heal ourselves? And there's so much that's been pushed down from women, that's why we don't have a whole lot of role models. It's coming back where we're able to, engage with this, but it's really been, I mean, if who I would shut my mouth if I felt like someone was gonna, come get
Yeah,
me because I took some chamomile and had a sore throat, and some mint, and that was enough to,
yeah,
and all those practices. So I really feel like there's any group of people who have been pushed down by another group of people, there's wisdom and things that needs to come out, because that is a truth, and it shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a hierarchy. It should all be like, look at this nugget that we have discovered 1,000 years ago, but it's been like, pushed down or someone else sort of took it over. You know what I mean? Like it's all should be at our access so that we can grow and help and see that we are all connected. Don't you think?
Yeah. And I think we're off balance right now with the female energy. We need to pull back the female energy because we're overloaded with this male energy, and it's causing a lot of suffering. Even in religion, the Gnostics talked about Sophia, and she's no
Yeah.
longer around. they robbed Sophia with this mescaline idea of God.
Yeah. And, just think about all the like indigenous, spirituality and all those beautiful things that they have to share and help. And just, it is a disease, I think, when one particular strain takes over to where it needs to be about control. And there's really no need for that. We can all have our voice and learn from each other.
I always say Mother Earth is suffering from a disease called man.
Yeah.
And I think we need to wake up and utilize our hearts, and then reconnect it with the mind, because
yeah. And one thing I was thinking about too was like, nowadays it's almost like a mental and psychological warfare.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I'm like, what else can I use? But because I was thinking, it was like, energy and like what we're going through and stuff, so in the 1800s, they had other issues like, oh my God, am I going to die of, like dysteria or something, would I die of like, bad water? Or is my child going to get hurt? And, there was a different sort of physical realm suffering. Right. But now it's like, there's so much access to people's energies and social media and TV and news and everything. And I feel like we really need to, and distractions, that is something that we're consuming. And as it can be very beautiful because we can find each other and we can find, and spread that. It can also, there's the shadow part of it that, do you ever feel that way? Like it's very mental right now, very psychological, like tribal.
And we're missing the intuitive knowing or intuitive connection with one another.
Definitely. Like. And I think people are, they want to seek that out. They want that connection. Yeah. And that's why it's so beautiful, like what you're doing with your podcast and, bringing that, when people listen to the different people that you have on and they are like, oh, I feel that too. I've had that experience or, whatever you're talking about, it helps bring people's awareness toward the light of that. So,
yeah, because we live in a world, if you don't think like me, you're against me or you're my enemy or, and it's okay to think differently. And it's okay. We don't have to agree with everything everyone is saying, but just open our minds, listen to people and learn, learn. And, one of the questions.
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say real quick. I mean, we're in a time where we have enough technology and we have enough resources that we really shouldn't be fighting at all. We should be coming up with creative you know what I mean? Like we can feed everyone because we can figure it out. We can actually heal the earth because we actually do have technology to do that. So now it's just like, that's what's sad. That's where it's going to be like, do we want to be on the low vibration or do we want to be on the higher vibration? Right.
Yeah. I have to ask this for my friend Pat. She's in Cincinnati, good friend.
Oh,
she wanted to know, why don't you like the word channeling?
Me? Oh, did I say I don't like the word channeling somewhere? Oh, I did. Okay. Yeah. I think at the beginning I was like trying to separate, like, I don't mind it now, but I think at the beginning I was worried that channeling was coming from more of a psychic space Then mediumship, when I was connecting to someone in spirit. So for me, it was more of, I think, maybe a discernment thing. But I'm fine with it now. It's kind of like, when you first are trying to figure it all out, I think I was
Yeah.
like, oh, if I'm like channeling, I'm just channeling anything, you know what I mean? Where it was like, I wanted, so yeah, but words come into, and sometimes from the people that you learn from, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like different things kind of come into fashion and kind of go out of fashion, but it's totally fine with me now. So, yeah.
So I know we're getting to the end, but I wanted to ask you this to give us a better understanding. What does it look like within you when you're giving a reading? Like, what pops up?
Okay. Like, what do you mean? Like, in terms of like, if I'm, I'm just going to like start reading. Like, do I do a, like,
Do you have images or something's talking to you?
okay. Yeah. So it's both. It can be external and internal. So if let's just say I'm doing a mediumship reading, and okay, I'll use an example from the other day because I can remember it. So I was connecting. Well, first I was connecting with her grandpa, and then I was connecting to a woman that I didn't know who it was, but then we figured out it was her aunt. And I saw some of what I saw. I'm going to call it information was outside of my body. So it was here. Like I saw a vision of his funny hat. He had a very specific wartime hat, and that's what I saw. And then he showed me like his uniform. So I saw him outside my body. And same with the woman for a little bit. But I don't see everything that way. And I'm actually kind of happy when I do get some, because it kind of jumps back and forth. And then when they blend with you, that means that you're going to start seeing things from their own perspective. So outside your body, you're just going to see like you would see, like pieces, not always everything, but I might see like, oh, I see you as like this kind of guy, maybe this height, but that only tells me who it is in that way, but that doesn't allow me any access to who you are, what your personality is, some of your memories, what they want to talk about, right? So it kind of goes back and forth like that. Sometimes I might not even see the spirit until the very end, or a little piece of them outside my body, because they'll just jump right in. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of how it happens. And it's not all clairvoyance. It's see things, it's the psychic senses, right? So it's all the senses you have right now, but in energy, and that's not yours. So I might hear them say something, or kind of like start laughing. Okay, I know this guy is like super funny, saying something sort of like weird and old timey, or I can feel very uncomfortable. I can feel, it depends on what they're leading me through. They might show me part of when they're passing experiences. I could, one gentleman, I was hearing really angelic music. There's all sorts of stuff that comes through, and in different ways with the psychic senses.
What's the craziest or most profound experience you have had over the years?
Oh my gosh. I know, it's so funny because my mom always says you need to write stuff down right after, or like put it on a microphone, because I feel like I get amnesia like right after, like spirit basically wipes part of it out. And I think they do that for a reason, so that it's just too much to contain, Well, that one's kind of a bummer, so I don't know if I should share that one. I've had some pretty, I suppose this one might be, I've had a spirit that basically, she was going to take my class. So I had read for her without going into anything real personal a couple of times. And then she was going to take my class. And then around Christmas time, but my class didn't start till January. And around Christmas time, I was having a couple of dreams in a row where I felt very like a spirit was visiting me, and I felt very uncomfortable. And I kept seeing from the woman's perspective like I was going to jump off a cliff or I was going to jump off this bridge. And I just felt very unsettled. And she was definitely in spirit contacting me. So I thought, okay, when that happens, it's probably like someone that's going to show up for my client, and then it'll make sense, because sometimes they kind of come early. Well, nothing made sense. And then after Christmas, when I started the class, I was like, oh, I wonder where so-and-so is. She didn't show up. She was one of the people I tried emailing her and I texted her. Finally, her daughter answered back and said that, her mom had passed, and right around Christmas time, right like the day after Christmas. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was her. She was trying to contact me, and so I don't know if that's a crazy experience, most craziest experience, but I do feel like it's one of those ones that kind of shocked me, or like showed me that people, I mean, it's, here you are in the physical, then you're contacting me, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's a very, I believe she was trying, and then she sent me some messages after, so I knew that she was okay and everything. But, life is so temporary. And I feel it's an honor to be able to connect with people after they've passed and try to get through some of those healing and profound messages. And some of them are for myself, because I felt like that was more about me, her and myself, and the relationship from knowing, and it wasn't a family member or a friend. Do you know what I mean? It was something like that. So I don't know if that was exactly what you're expecting, but that just kind of came through. So
No, thank you. That gives us a better understanding. I know you give courses and readings, and you have a website. Maybe you can let us know how to contact you that are interested. I know my friend Pat and my cousin Joy Michelle wants to connect with you eventually.
Sure. Awesome. Yep. So I have right now, I've been teaching on and off for 4 years. And right now I have available as a self-guided mediumship development course. So you can go at your own pace and practice with others. There's, what am I trying to say? There's guided meditations on there and exercises and things like that. And then I am going to be doing like a 5-month smaller mentorship group. So if you want to, and then we go through some of the course elements and practice with each other. And then I'm going to be pretty soon, I'm working on getting my intuitive psychic self-guided course out. So that should be coming out pretty soon. And then if you, my website is www.nicoleintuitivemedium.com. And so Nicole Intuitive Medium is my website, and then my social media handles. So,
and I will put your link down on when I upload this video. So I appreciate it. And giving these courses, what holds us back from our own abilities? Because everyone has these abilities, but we just don't know how to pull them out of us and utilize them.
I think the biggest thing is self-doubt. Am I psychic? Am I medium? Or at least I feel like it's one of the top ones that people worry about. And another one is fear around what's going to come through, or, or am I going to go crazy? Those are the top three. Like people look at it as very black and white. Like, what if I'm not? I'm just kind of like fooling myself. I'm not really, so there's that. And then there's people are like worried about, is it evil, or am I going to have like, spirits following me all over the place? And then, yeah, am I going to go crazy? I'm not going to be able to like turn it off, or, you know what I mean? And I laugh. I mean, I just laugh. I had all those. Why did it take me so long to accept and develop? I was extremely worried about those things. And I can tell you right now, none of that will happen because of the way that spirit world is. And there's different things that we learn to do with our own energy as well. So that if anything, I feel 1000% less crazy than I was before I developed. So I think that's also, people oftentimes don't realize that they're already absorbing a lot of people in physical realms energy, and to really understand how to take care of yourself and, understand what's yours and what's not yours too.
Yeah, thank you. You were very easy to talk to today, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on, Lulu. And it was so nice chatting and meeting you in person. And yeah, so thanks to everybody for listening.
Thank you. And I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay, take care.